My name is Keating. Today we'll be talking about preparing today's workforce for tomorrow. To start, I want to share a little information about where we are in the state of our industry today. The reality is 40% of our workforce is worried about the future of their jobs. 40%. Now, we shouldn't be living in the age where people are worried about the future of their jobs. But McKinsey & Company actually tells us that only 40% worrying may not be enough, because right now, 7 in 10 workers are in jobs where there's an uncertainty about their future. 5 out of 10 workers are in jobs today that are automatable by already existing technology. They could be made redundant today by applying that technology. 2 out of 10 workers are in occupations today that may shrink, and only 1 in 10 are in jobs today where there's a chance that that may grow. These statistics are startling, so it's no wonder that our workforce is fearful. In fact, McKinsey tells us that an estimated 30 million people may be at risk in the future for their jobs by 2030 as a result of automation and robotics. 30 million. But globally, it could be as big as 400 million. That's 15% of the world's workforce. And so McKinsey tells us that 23% of that is the US representative. But 23% of 400 million is not 30 million. It's actually 92 million. So what is the number? Is it 30 or is it 92? Well, PwC actually tells us it's neither of those, but it's 38 million. And then the Organization for Economic Development tells us it's actually only 9 million. And Forrester comes back and says, no, it's 24 million, where Science Alert tells us it's actually only 3 million. But then Oxford University rounds off all of our data by saying, all of you are wrong, and it's actually 47 million people whose jobs may be at risk. So what is it? This is very confusing. And it should be, because the reality is we don't know how many people are at risk in the future. We just don't know right now. So what we can do is focus on what we do know. But right now, what's happening is when we look in the media, when we look online, we're seeing messages that are planting seeds that are asking us, will robots take our children's jobs? Or are we prepared for when robots take our jobs? Or robots will destroy our jobs and we're not ready for it. And then there's new statistics being thrown out that actually 73 million people may lose their jobs by 2030. Or globally, it could be as big as 800 million. And then my favorite proclamation of all is that you will lose your job to a robot and sooner than you think. This messaging is scary. I would be scared. Our workforce is scared. So what can we do about it? We can focus on what we do know. And what we do know is that automation has a global reach that is transforming economies and the workforce today. This is happening right now, not in the future. It's happening now. We can recognize that these type of changes are not new. They've actually been happening for a number of centuries. Just think back to the 19th century with the Industrial Revolution, the manufacturing, the agricultural, the industry changes. Yes, there was a decline in those industries, but there was also an increase in our economy. So technology did cause changes to decrease, did cause a loss of jobs, but yet the economy continued to grow. And at least once a generation since the Industrial Revolution, people are in a near panic about jobs decreasing. Let's think back to the 19th century, early 20th century. One of the major modes of transportation was carriages being drawn by horses, until we had the invention of the automobile. And the automobile absolutely decimated the horse and carriage industry. But it also created new jobs. It transformed industries. It transformed the streetcar into the bus. It gave us gas stations, gas station attendants, auto repair workers. It created new jobs. It also gave us the opportunity to move further away from where we currently worked. creating new towns, new communities, new cities, giving us the opportunity to vacation in new areas that we may not have been able to reach previously, giving us the vacation industries. So yes, automobiles did destroy the horse and carriage industry, but it gave us new industries, new jobs. More recent in our lifetime was the invention of the personal computer. It did destroy about 3.5 million jobs, but it also created over 19 million jobs. And so if my math is correct, that's a surplus of over 15 million jobs, accounting for 10% of the workforce at one point, growing each year. It also gave us the internet, which has given us more jobs, jobs that we could never have even fathomed existing previously. For example, now you could be a professional video game player, or you could be a social media influencer, or for those of you who love cats, you could be a YouTube cat video analyzer, all which are real jobs that we wouldn't have fathomed existed before the invention of the internet. So yes, technology does cause some destruction. It does destroy jobs, but more importantly, it creates jobs, new jobs. And so what we need to be focusing on is the shift in those jobs that it does change. And so researchers have taken a look at over 2,000 work activities across 800 occupations, and they've been able to identify there is a certain subset of work activities where the demand will shift. We know this. Now, personally, I'm looking forward to automation taking over some of my tasks. Think about those mundane activities that you do, the ones where you think to yourself, this is a waste of my time. Automation is going to give you back that time. So then you can focus on applying that time to different work skills. So automation, yes, will decrease some demand activity, but it will also increase demand activity. Now, what we need to pay attention to is there will be an area where the demand decrease is greater than the demand increase. And the activities with the highest potential for automation can be categorized in collecting data, processing data, and predictable physical activities. Those activities where we can predict. These are the areas that we need to be focusing on. So when we take this information and we apply it to jobs that exist today, what we can uncover is there are two categories of jobs. There are jobs where in the future the demand will increase. Those are teachers, social workers, engineers. And then there are those that have the highest decrease in future demand, like retail sales, laborers, financial clerks, vehicle operators. And this is the area we need to focus on because in the US, we have over 25 million people currently employed in these roles. So there is a cause for concern, but not yet an alarm, because we can start planning today. Because it's happening today. Just take a look at the tool and die worker who's being replaced by the 3D robot. Or we have the customer service representatives who are being replaced by chatbots or IBM's Watson. We have forklift drivers that are being replaced by robots. And we no longer have to go into a bank to deposit a check. We can do that right from our phone. So this is happening now. And there's a lot of unknowns, but what again we can focus on is what we do know. And what we do know is that there will be jobs lost. There are jobs lost today. Could be as great as 15% as McKinsey is estimating. Could be less. But we know there will be jobs lost. We also know that there will be jobs changed, like the streetcar to the bus. For all those activities where the demand may decrease for us, we can now take that time and apply it to those more skilled activities. So our jobs will change. We'll be working closer with robotics, with automation. But most importantly, jobs will be gained. And it could be as great as up to 30%, significantly offsetting the percentage that's lost. If we just look at history and we look at the Industrial Revolution or agricultural manufacturing or the automobile or technology, we see that yes, there were jobs that were destroyed, but there were also many, many, many jobs that were gained. And this is the message we need to be focusing on. Now, there are other forces that are at play that are going to impact our workforce in the future, such as the demographic shift, which with the size and the age of our world's population, or rapid urbanization with people moving into the cities, or global economic power shift between developed and developing countries, or resource scarcity and climate change between the depleting fossil fuels and the rising sea levels. These are also going to impact our future workforce, but we don't hear about these today. What you hear about is robots and automation are destroying our jobs. And the reason for that is fear sells. Clickbait works. You're going to have many more people who are interested in hearing how robots are going to steal their jobs than you are hearing about how we can plan properly for the future. And so this is where we come in as L&D leaders, where we need to bring in hope. We need to change the conversation, and we need to start creating a plan of action for our workforce. Because at the end of the day, hope and a plan of action drive change and create the future. And there are a number of ways that we can do this. First is we need to focus on L&D. Business is evolving. Technology is evolving. Learning and development needs to take a step back and figure out how we need to evolve to meet those future needs. Today, we are known as encouraging on-the-job learning. We're known as teaching content or producing content, producing job-related content. We're known as being the providers of learning. Some even call us the owners of learning, putting that accountability on us. We need to take a step back, and instead of being the providers of learning, we need to be learning enablers. Creating a connected learner that empowers and encourages them to take control over their future. And we do this by focusing on skills, not jobs. Focusing on skills, helping them identify the skills they currently have, identifying the skills that are going to be needed in the future, while architecting developmental opportunities to bridge the gap between the skills they have today and the skills they're going to need tomorrow. All the while, we're teaching them how to learn. We're helping them build effective learning habits. Creating the connected learner is how we're going to be able to prepare today's workforce for tomorrow. So I want to start by talking about skills. And I'll start with the skills that separate us from artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence excels at the linear and repetitive, but we excel at the creative. AI is strong in problem identification, but we're stronger in solving complex problems. AI provides information and content, but we find meaning in that information. And in the future, AI will be leading the machine industries. And that's okay, because we're going to be leading the people. And that's what we need to be focusing on, the skills that separate us from artificial intelligence and robotics, the human skills, the higher order cognitive skills, the ones that allow us to connect with our learners, our patients, our customers, and have empathy and interpersonal skills and relationships, the skills that allow us to solve those complex problems beyond the linear, where robotics and automation stops. Our empathy, our cognitive skills, our logic, these are the skills that separate us. These are the skills of the future, our human skills. So regardless of what the media, television, movies may want you to think, as much as people want robots to become humans, the reality is they can't, and they never will be. And that's the advantage that we have by focusing on these skills. And we start by having conversations with our workforce today about these higher order cognitive skills. And we can do that by using tools like a skills barometer to help us identify where our workforce currently is in these skill sets and also identify the skills they're interested in developing further. We can then take this and turn it into a skills heat map. So we can identify the gaps that we have and start developing employees to fill those gaps. Now, another important skill set that I learned early on in my career was transferable skills. And this is something I have carried with me and taken forth, and I try to share this with everyone in my group, in my department, anybody I talk to about the importance of transferable skills. Because transferable skills are the core set of skills and abilities that you have that can transfer to any industry, any job, any line of business. Understanding the concept of transferable skills is empowering to our workforce and will help them recognize that they have skills that can follow them anywhere they go, that can help close the gap and close that fear of not knowing if they're going to have a job in the future. Beyond transferable skills, we need to also be looking at how to identify the future skills that are going to be needed. And there are a couple approaches that we can take. One is to capture ongoing market data to help us predict and prepare for those future skill needs. Now, one approach you could follow that's similar or being used by DXC technology, they're gathering predictive data through supervised machine learning by analyzing job boards and publications and industry information, while also using a keyword search for business parameters, around those keyword business parameters. And then they're having data scientists take that information and apply statistical theory to help identify the future skills that are needed. Now, for the majority of us, we don't have access to data scientists or supervised machine learning. So what we can do is we can turn to industry research firms like Gartner, Forrester, Burson, McKinsey Global Institute, and we can use the data that they're uncovering for us about those future skill needs. So looking external is important and valuable, but we could also look internal to our business, to our customers. And we could create something along the lines of a skills advisory board that has subject matter experts, L&D, business, customer representatives. And the idea is that we meet on a regular, reoccurring basis to talk about the future, to identify our strategy for the future, to make sure that the business is staying ahead, that we are being proactive instead of reactive with our future skill needs, while also thinking about what type of developmental opportunities do we need to create today for our workforce to prepare them for the future. So it's a concept to consider, a skills advisory board. So we've looked externally, we've looked internally, now let's turn to our workforce. For example, Ford Motor Company is reinventing the career planning tool. They have created a mock future resume that forces the employees to reverse engineer their career path by thinking about where they want to go, thinking about the role that they want in the future, and then working backwards for the activities and the skills they're going to need to accomplish to make that goal attainable. Things like their future successes, potential future failures, or developmental opportunities that they'll need. This is a great tool for managers because it gives you insights into those employee aspirations. It also helps as a succession planning tool by identifying employees who could be at risk. It helps as a short-term individual development plan by using it as a framework to have conversations between the manager and employee. And it works as a long-term career planning opportunity by identifying the goals the employee has and matching those to the future needs of the organization. As a result of this tool, Ford has seen an increase in employee satisfaction and employee retention. So we've looked at identifying the future skills. Now we need to architect developmental opportunities for our employees to close that skill gap. So one approach could be by creating a stretch assignment. A stretch assignment is a project, a job, a short-term developmental opportunity that pushes our employees out of their comfort zone, but not too far where it's going to burn them out, it's going to stress them out. An example could be an internship, or it could be a job swap, or managing an intern or a volunteer. It's just a task that allows your employees the opportunity to develop a skill outside of their current environment or their workspace. Now, taking the concept of a stretch assignment or even an internship, the next idea to consider is having a central location where these can be stored so that employees know where to go to find out these developmental opportunities. An example of this could be a very basic or simple technology solution. It could be an intranet page, it could be SharePoint. It doesn't have to be anything too complicated. But there tend to be 4 qualities that a digital skills platform will have. 1, it has a database of all professions and occupations. Then it shows a calendar that displays how, where, and when these skills are exhibited. Then it has an index of the employability against those professions or occupations, so the workforce knows which skills or which roles will have an increase in demand. And then most importantly, it has the skills required to fill those roles. Now, an example of a skills platform in practice is Intel's Development Opportunity Tool, otherwise known as a DOT. A DOT is an internal platform used by Intel where any manager can go and publish a short-term developmental project that they have. Anyone in the industry, anyone in the company can apply for those jobs. Now, this type of platform gives two-way skill visibility between the skills that are needed and the skills that you'll be developing. It also offers best fit development by allowing our employees to have access to opportunities that they may not have otherwise known would be existing. And it gives managers the opportunity to identify what skills their employees may be learning and bringing back to their department, or it also gives managers access to new talent that they may not have known otherwise would have existed in different areas. So this is the Development Opportunity Tool. So another example is we may not always have the skills inside our organization. We may need to be looking external to develop these skills. So one approach you could take, similar to Procter & Gamble and Google, is they created a digital market talent exchange. It's a month-long job swap where both companies swap the same number of employees, and those employees stay in that role for a month, learning those new skills in a new industry, in a new line of business, and bring that information back. So whether it's a stretch assignment, whether it's a digital skills platform, or whether it's an external development opportunity, the idea is the same. We want to be giving our workforce the opportunity to develop new skills, to focus on second skilling. And second skilling is giving our workforce the opportunity to develop these skills while they're still employed today. So developing the skills while you're still working. We don't want to wait until they're close to being made redundant or already redundant. We want to be having these conversations with our workforce today. And lastly, our approach to building our connected learner is helping them understand how to learn, helping them build effective learning habits. The modern career is like a nonstop conveyor belt. You have to constantly be moving and learning so that you can stay on top of the changes, so that you can stay ahead. And to do that, we need to be instilling the concept of being a lifelong learner so that our employees don't get left behind. Constantly learning helps you be adaptable, and it will help our employees be able to fill the organizational gaps that will be uncovered in the future, the ones that we can't even fathom existing today. Having that concept of constantly learning empowers our learners. We need to also help them recognize the importance for practicing reflection. Learning is more about the discussion and engagement than it is about the provision and consumption of content. This is where we need to step in and build opportunities for our workforce to practice reflection after the learning, in their context, in their environment. So once the learning is complete, they go back to their department, and they're in their own context, and they're able to reflect on what they've learned and practice applying it in a real-world environment. And lastly, we need to help our workforce analyze information, because more employees today are collecting, analyzing, and using information in their daily jobs. But unfortunately, less than 40% of our workforce is actually effectively able to analyze information, which leads to poor performance and organizational risk. And it's no wonder, given the abundance of information that's out there, the information overload. Last year alone in the US, we published over 300,000 books. That doesn't take into account the online publications, the tweets, the blogs, the emails. It's a lot of information. In fact, studies have shown that right now, we are averaging about 10 hours a day consuming media. 10 hours a day. That's 4 hours greater than the rest of the globe. Now, when I saw this, I thought, that's not me. That seems like a lot. I can't be anywhere close to that. Now, Apple recently released a feature that allows you to track your usage. So I thought, I'm going to turn this on and take a look. And lo and behold, I average between 5 and 6 hours a day on my mobile device, not taking into account my laptop or any other mode of consuming media content. And that's a lot of time. And that was actually a time that I was on vacation. And so I imagine that during an actual work week, I'm consuming a lot more time on my devices. And then on top of this, in learning and development, we're asking ourselves the question, how can we build training materials rapidly enough to catch up with the pace of organizational change? How can we build materials rapidly enough? The answer is we can't. And we shouldn't. Why should we be creating all of the content when there's so much content that already exists? Instead of us creating it, why don't we focus on curating the content? Let's help our workforce by identifying the information that they need and giving them easy access to the right information in a format that works for them so that they can effectively analyze that information, knowing which area they should be focusing on. So whether it's giving them the concept of being a lifelong learner, or the importance of practicing reflection, or helping them analyze information by curating the content. The idea is simple. We want to be helping our employees build effective learning habits. At the end of the day, our focus is to create the connected learner. That's how we're going to help our workforce of the 20-some million people who may be at risk, who aren't aware of the transferable skills that they have, who aren't aware of the possibilities of what they can be in the future. We can help them create a plan in the future so that they feel more secure, so that they're not worrying about that future. And we do that by evolving from being providers of learning to being learning enablers, helping our employees help themselves. The reality is there is work for people today. There will be work for people tomorrow in the future of automation. So let's change the conversation. Instead of talking about the fear and the worry that robots will take our jobs, let's change it from humans versus machines to humans and the machines. Our future blended workforce. This is how we're going to be able to impact today's workforce for tomorrow. Thank you for joining me today.